It's been said that architecture makes time visible, like layers of geologic strata. You can see in an Amherst campus how that happens. Attitudes change, technology changes, society changes, pedagogical aims change. These buildings are like cultural artifacts, Rosetta Stones. They tell us about their time, and the interesting thing is they don't lie. They speak the truth about what the values and the visions of their creators were. At Amherst, you can start with College Row. The most important building on the campus is Johnson Chapel. It's an example of Greek Revival architecture that was popular in the United States in the early years of the 19th century. A temple-like structure made of brick and wood that faces west toward the Connecticut River, which was the interstate highway of its day. Simple, strong, muscular. There's nothing frilly at all about it. Johnson Chapel and College Row are citadels of moral virtue that were supposed to cleanse a miserable world. Interestingly enough, it doesn't have a steeple on top. It has this two-tiered, almost wedding cake-like tower. Had it been, say, a Gothic building with a steeple, like the kind of architecture that Amherst built in the 1870s, the entire tone of the college's architecture would have been very different. Johnson Chapel today reads as a kind of almost secular structure, like what you would see on Capitol Hill in Washington. Vincent Scully, the great Yale architectural historian, called architecture a continuing dialogue between the generations, which creates an environment developing across time. And that's really what you see at Amherst, that continuing dialogue between past and present and ultimately future. One of the fascinating things about the Amherst campus is the reuse and reinvention of historic structures. Converse was a library. It's now the administration and a classroom building. Morgan was a library, and it's now an academic building. Barrett was a gym, and it's now an academic building. The finest example of this is Fairweather Hall, which was originally a physics and chemistry building. It's the best building at Amherst and really one of the most influential beyond Johnson Chapel, evoking the importance of reason rather than faith. Gorgeous orange, red brick, beautiful terracotta decoration, a loggia, 3 arches that form an entranceway into the building, horizontally proportioned in contrast to the verticality of the stern steeple. The terracotta is really worth looking at closely. You can see an egg and dart pattern. You can see another detail called the dentil, which is tooth-like. You can see rosettes in the arches that form the loggia. It's a hugely significant building here because it was designed by the firm of McKim, Mead & White, great New York architects, one of whose partners, William Rutherford Mead, was an Amherst graduate. And it really sets the tone for the college's architecture for another 70 years. McKim, Mead & White becomes the campus architect. They design innumerable buildings here, from Kirby Theater to Converse Hall, and that is one of the main factors that leads to the harmonious character of the campus's architecture. When people think of architecture, they often just think of individual structures, brick and mortar, steel and glass. A good campus is more than the sum of its individual parts. It's the combination of the buildings, the landscape, the people, and how all those things come together to create a place that affects us in the present, but also lingers in our memories and inspires us as we look toward the future. During World War II, Stanley King, then the president of Amherst, was out for a stroll and was contemplating a future war memorial for the Amherst men who had died in World War I and World War II. He looked out over the Holyoke Range and saw in his eye a war memorial that would capture that view and also look out over playing fields that would memorialize the team spirit that had contributed to the victories of World War I and World War II. The landscape architect, Arthur Shercliffe, combined with the campus architect, James Kellum Smith, to create something very special, a memorial that very much recalls the prototype of a Greek theater. It's a continuation of the main quad, yet a zone unto itself. We see that in the steps that lead down to the memorial, the way the surface changes from grass in the quad to bluestone. We see that in the great circular block at the center of the memorial, the way it incorporates the names of the 142 Amherst men who died in those wars. They're arranged in 13 concentric circles evoking the 13 states. There are 48 stars around the edge of the memorial, suggesting the 48 states of the Union at the time of the Second World War. The blocks at the edges of the memorial precinct name the theaters of war in the First and Second World Wars. The obelisks in the blocks are blunt to suggest lives cut short, and yet there are suggestions of life everlasting in the flowers around the memorial that blossom in the springtime. It reduces classical architecture to its essence, and it has a kind of severity that's perfectly in tune with the original architecture of Amherst College. There are a lot of things that the college has achieved, and there are a lot of things that the college still can achieve. The key really is to retain and to be cognizant of the architectural DNA of Amherst. Elemental simplicity, beautiful materiality, landscapes that provide gathering places and linger in the memory, but bringing that DNA, that boldness to bear on the latest academic challenges, cultural challenges, technological imperatives. And when you do that, you create something very powerful.